It was January 15th, 2019, a cold Tuesday afternoon that, at first glance, seemed like any other. I was rushing to pick up a prescription from the pharmacy, caught in the whirlwind of daily stresses that so often consumed my mind. Work had been hard that day. Harsh words from my boss lingered in my thoughts like a shadow. My heart, though filled with faith, was weighed down by frustration and fatigue. As I entered the pharmacy, the sharp white fluorescent light seemed almost too intense. The line was long, and with every passing moment, a low hum of irritation began to grow inside me. I stood there, trying to steady my thoughts with silent prayers, but the burdens of the day pressed harder on my spirit. Without warning, dizziness swept over me, and the world around me tilted violently. I remember reaching out for something to hold on to, a shelf, a counter, anything. But my legs gave way beneath me. I heard distant voices shouting, felt a rush of panic in the air. And then, nothing. When my eyes opened, or rather when my awareness returned, I found myself standing in the midst of a vast, silent darkness. It wasn't the darkness of a closed room, or the simple absence of light. It was a living, breathing void that seemed almost tangible. I had no body, no weight, no sensation, only awareness. In that strange stillness, fear could have easily taken hold, but a deeper sense of anticipation filled me instead, as if I had been summoned for something far greater than I could understand. Far off in the distance, a small point of light appeared, so delicate and pure it seemed to hum with life itself. Without effort, I began moving toward it, or perhaps it moved toward me. With every heartbeat, the light grew stronger, brighter, warmer. It was not just illumination, it was alive, pulsing with love, with truth, with something so sacred that it made every pain, every fear, every earthly concern fade into insignificance. As I drew closer, I realized that within that brilliant light stood a figure. I couldn't make out his features, but my soul knew instantly who he was. Every fiber of my being recognized him, not from the pages of books, not from songs or sermons, but from a deep, eternal place within me. It was Jesus. There was no fear in me then, only awe, only overwhelming love radiating from him, washing over me like waves of purest grace. His presence felt like home, like the place my spirit had always belonged, even if my mind had never fully realized it. "Rebecca," his voice spoke, not loud, not soft, but full, alive, resonating in the very core of my being. "I have something important to show you, something that many choose not to see, yet it is vital for their souls." Before I could even form a response, the scenery around us shifted. The light dimmed slightly, though his love remained ever near. In an instant, I was standing at the edge of a breathtaking expanse, one that defied explanation. It wasn't frightening in the way horror movies portray. It was heavy with significance, powerful in its silent call to pay attention. The atmosphere pulsed with something sacred. As I stood there, I understood, without being told, that what I was about to witness would not be for the sake of fear, but for the sake of love. What I would see was a message, a warning born not from judgment, but from a deep, aching desire to save, to awaken, to invite hearts back into real living communion with the divine. I looked to Jesus, his form still shining brightly, his eyes, though veiled, radiating a compassion so deep it brought tears to my soul. This was not a journey of condemnation. It was a journey of rescue. He reached out his hand, not touching me physically, but drawing my spirit forward into the revelation that was to come. And as I stepped closer to the precipice of this vision, my heart beat with a mixture of awe and anticipation, sensing that the truths about to be unveiled would not only challenge everything I had known, but would ignite a transformation in me that could never be undone. Somewhere deep inside, I knew. This was not just for me. It was for everyone who ever dared to believe that faith was more than a ritual, that love was more than a word, that salvation was more than a ticket to heaven. It was an invitation to live differently, to live fully awake in the love and mercy of God. I took a breath, or what felt like a breath, and stepped into the vision that awaited me. If this message touched your heart, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel. Together, we are building a community where love, truth, and grace shine brightly. We'd love to know where you're watching from. Share your city and your heart with us in the comments. As I crossed the invisible threshold into the vision, the environment shifted around me in an instant. Gone was the brilliant warmth of the initial light, replaced by a vast, somber expanse that pulsed with heavy meaning. Before me stretched a land cracked and broken, a landscape that bore the scars of forgotten battles not fought with swords, but within the depths of human hearts. The sky above was dark, not as a punishment, but as a mirror, a reflection of the hidden burdens so many souls carry. Red streaks slashed across the horizon like ancient wounds not yet healed. Lightning flickered in the distance, not to frighten, but to illuminate the urgent truth waiting to be seen. Beside me, Jesus stood with unwavering patience. His presence remained a beacon of love, a constant reminder that whatever I would see next was not meant to crush my spirit, but to awaken it. He gestured gently, inviting me to look closer. At first, it was hard to understand what I was seeing. In the distance, I noticed groups of people moving about, busy with their own concerns. Many were carrying objects that looked like crosses, Bibles, rosaries, sacred symbols clutched tightly against their chests. Yet as I watched, I realized with a deep ache that these souls were not at peace. Despite their sacred objects, they seemed weighed down by invisible chains, unable to rise, unable to reach the light they yearned for. Their faces bore the strain of years spent striving, performing, believing that outward acts could bridge the gap between them and the divine. Yet, something vital was missing, a light from within, a fire of true love that could have freed them. They carried my name on their lips, Jesus said, his voice rich with sorrow. But they never allowed my spirit to transform their hearts. Each word pierced me deeply. I understood now. This vision was not about condemning those who had failed, but about unveiling the subtle traps that so easily ensnare even the faithful, the traps of pride, appearance, and self-reliance disguised as devotion. I watched as a woman, adorned in beautiful church attire, knelt and recited long, eloquent prayers. Her words were perfect, her posture flawless. Yet there was a hollowness in her movements, an absence of genuine connection. It was as if she prayed not from longing, but from habit, from expectation, from duty. Religion without relationship, Jesus said softly, is an empty echo. True prayer is not performed for approval. It flows naturally from a heart in love. Nearby, a man stood with a Bible in his hands, quoting verses with precision and authority. People gathered around him, nodding in agreement. Yet I could see the sadness in his soul. How knowledge had become a shield rather than a bridge, a wall rather than a window into grace. He knew the words, Jesus explained, but he never let those words know him. My word is not a sword to harm others. It is a light to heal the soul. Tears blurred my vision as I observed these scenes, not out of fear, but out of a deep compassion ignited within me. How easily pride could masquerade as faith. How many hearts had been trapped, believing that checking religious boxes would satisfy the hunger of the soul, while neglecting the simple, raw relationship that God so desperately desired. As I turned my gaze to other souls, the same pattern repeated. A woman who tirelessly served in every church ministry, but secretly carried resentment and judgment. A man who led worship with skill, yet felt superior in his piety. A preacher who spoke powerful sermons, but inwardly crave the applause more than God's approval. Even the best intentions, Jesus said with profound gentleness, can be poisoned by pride if the heart remains closed to my refining love. He guided me to a small group sitting in a circle, each debating doctrines and theological nuances with passion and vehemence. They seemed so sure of their rightness, so deeply entrenched in their own interpretations, that they failed to notice the division growing between them. They defended their knowledge but forgot to defend love, Jesus said, his voice almost a whisper. The greatest commandment is not theological precision. It is to love the Lord your God with all your heart, and to love your neighbor as yourself. A heavy silence fell around us. It wasn't a silence of despair, but of deep realization, the kind that calls a soul not to shame, but to a better way. Then, almost like a gentle breeze stirring the air, I felt a shift. In the midst of this heavy landscape, I spotted a few souls whose demeanor was different. Their faces shone with a quiet humility. They weren't loudly proclaiming their deeds or defending their knowledge. They were simply kneeling, hearts open, whispering prayers of gratitude and surrender. Their light was soft, yet powerful, spreading outward like ripples on water. Where they knelt, the ground seemed to heal, the cracks lessened, and flowers, small, delicate blossoms, sprouted from the once barren soil. I turned to Jesus, hope rising in my chest. "Is this what you seek?" I asked. He smiled, a smile so full of joy and tenderness that my spirit nearly burst with longing. "Yes," he said, "this is what I seek. Not perfection, but humility. Not performance, but love. Not prideful certainty, but childlike trust." In that moment, I understood something so profoundly beautiful that it felt like the world itself had tilted toward hope. True salvation was not a reward for those who performed the best, but a gift for those who dared to kneel low and receive it with empty hands. The chains I had seen binding so many were not put there by an angry God. They were the result of pride that refused to let go, to surrender, to fall into the arms of grace. Tears streamed down my face, not from fear, but from the aching beauty of this truth. How many lives could be transformed if only they saw this? How many hearts could be healed if only they stopped striving and started surrendering? As I stood there, surrounded by this mixture of sorrow and hope, Jesus turned his gaze deeper into the landscape, and I felt his invitation once again, to follow him even further into the heart of this revelation, to see what lay beyond the outward performances, beyond the religious masks, beyond the illusions of self-righteousness. Without hesitation, I took a step forward, ready to see, ready to learn, ready to be changed. If this message touched your heart, we warmly invite you to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Together, we are building a community where grace, humility, and love are lived every day. Following Jesus deeper into the vision, the landscape shifted once more. The brokenness faded into a new scene, one infused with a quiet intensity, a place where the air itself seemed filled with possibility, like the tender stillness before the first light of dawn. Here, I saw souls at different stages of their journeys, some still weighed down by pride, others shining with the first trembling steps of surrender. It was as if I had entered a sacred garden where seeds of true transformation had been planted, struggling toward the light, each one yearning to grow. Jesus walked beside me with steady purpose, his presence a river of peace. "Transformation," he said, "is not a single moment. It is a lifelong journey of opening the heart wider and wider to my love." Before us appeared a young woman, her head bowed low. Tears streaked her face, yet her hands were lifted, not in despair, but in surrender. I could feel her prayer, not through words, but through the pure current of her heart. "Change me, Lord. I cannot do it alone." Around her, a golden light began to bloom, as if heaven itself had leaned down to touch her soul. The The beauty of it stole my breath away. It was not the beauty of perfection, but the beauty of humility, of honesty, of raw, aching openness. "This is what pleases my heart," Jesus whispered. "Not flawless deeds, but hearts willing to be made new." I saw her life unfold like pages of a living book. She stumbled often, sometimes falling back into old habits, sometimes doubting her worth. But each time she fell, she reached for God's hand instead of retreating into pride. Each time, she allowed grace to lift her higher, shape her deeper. Through her weaknesses, His strength became visible. Through her brokenness, His love shone brighter. Transformation was not about becoming impressive. It was about becoming real. Nearby, I noticed a man who had once been full of religious pride. In his earthly life, he had found comfort in legalism, measuring his worth by rigid adherence to rules. Yet something had shifted. He was now kneeling with hands open, confessing his need, allowing the hard shell of his pride to be shattered by mercy. Tears of joy, not shame, ran down his face. His rigid posture had softened into something tender, beautiful. A melody of freedom seemed to rise from him, a song not sung with lips, but with a life surrendered. "He is beginning to understand," Jesus said, a deep warmth in his voice. "Transformation is not achieved by trying harder, but by trusting deeper." The ground around these souls was vibrant with life. Flowers I had never seen on earth grew in wild profusion, blooms of humility, of compassion, of authentic love. Their colors were not merely seen. They were felt, resonating in the heart with the music of heaven. Transformation, I realized, was not about becoming better versions of ourselves. It was about becoming vessels so empty of self that God could fill them entirely with His Spirit. Every soul here bore marks of struggle, of battle scars from their inner wars against pride, fear, and selfishness. Yet none of these scars diminished their beauty. They amplified it. Their wounds were places where God's glory had entered in. Jesus led me further, showing me souls who had once lived ordinary lives: teachers, bakers, mothers, farmers, people the world never celebrated, but who had lived with authentic surrender. They hadn't sought greatness. They had sought God. And in doing so, they had found the truest greatness of all. They chose love over recognition, Jesus said. They chose forgiveness over resentment, humility over pride, truth over image. These daily choices, small and unseen by the world, are celebrated in heaven. He showed me moments of hidden obedience. A man offering kindness to a stranger without expecting thanks. A woman forgiving a deep betrayal in secret. A child praying earnestly for a hurting friend. These small, unseen acts had sown seeds that blossomed into eternal beauty. The heavens rejoiced over them more than the grandest public achievements, because they reflected the heart of God. As we walked, I saw myself reflected in countless mirrors, some clear, some clouded. In the mirrors clouded by pride, my reflection was distorted, fragmented, anxious. But in the mirrors of surrender, I glimpsed a different version of myself, lighter, freer, radiant with peace that no earthly striving could ever produce. "You are being shown your own journey," Jesus said. "Every day you are offered the choice: cling to pride or step into transformation." His words were not heavy with condemnation. They were an invitation, a song of hope calling me to live not in fear of failure, but in the joy of daily surrender. We came upon a small, clear stream running through the landscape. Its waters sparkled with purity, and I knew it symbolized the ongoing washing of the soul, the continual renewal that comes from abiding in God's presence. Those who knelt at the stream and drank were refreshed, renewed, restored. They did not emerge perfect. They emerged more alive, more anchored in love, more free. Transformation, I understood, was not about outward appearances, but inward surrender. It was a daily turning toward God, a daily dying to the illusions of pride, a daily rising into the light of grace. As I stood there, the stream's gentle song washing over me, I realized how easily we settle for surface-level faith, mistaking activity for intimacy, busyness for belonging. Yet God calls us deeper still, to a relationship that strips away the masks and heals the soul. Jesus smiled at me with a look that held all the encouragement I would ever need. "You are not called to perfection," he said. "You are called to love me with a heart continually made new." The invitation was clear, not to earn, not to perform, but to yield, to trust, to be transformed by love itself. And as I leaned down to cup my hands in the living waters, tasting the sweetness of surrender, I knew this journey was just beginning. Beyond the garden, beyond the gentle stream, a new horizon awaited, one that would reveal the full beauty of a heart set free. The gentle stream faded into a golden mist, and I found myself standing once more in the presence of that radiant light that had first called me. It pulsed with the heartbeat of heaven, rich with promises yet to unfold, alive with the love that never ceases to pursue us. Jesus stood before me, his eyes reflecting the boundless mercy and hope he offers to every soul willing to embrace it. Around us, the air shimmered with the music of eternity, songs of the redeemed, songs of hearts that had been broken, surrendered, healed, and transformed. "Rebecca," he said tenderly, "you have seen the path of pride and the path of humility. You have witnessed the hollow promises of performance and the glorious freedom of true surrender. Now you must choose daily which path you will walk." His words were not a burden, they were a gift. I felt no fear, only a profound sense of wonder that such grace was offered so freely to those willing to lay down their illusions and receive it. He extended his hand toward me, and without hesitation, I placed mine in his. As our hands touched, a current of life surged through me, a love so vast it erased every lingering shadow of doubt, every remnant of striving. In that moment, I knew I was not called to live in fear of failing. I was called to live in the fearless light of being loved. He led me forward once again, and before us appeared a great multitude, souls shining with the brightness of authentic faith. They were from every nation, every language, every walk of life. They carried no titles, no accolades, no records of their deeds, only hearts that had been emptied of pride and filled with love. They moved like rivers of light, weaving through the heavens, touching everything they encountered with the fragrance of divine joy. They had not earned this place, they had received it. They had not achieved perfection. They had embraced surrender. Tears filled my eyes as I watched them, my heart swelling with a longing to live this way, to walk this earth as a bearer of that same unstoppable light. "This," Jesus said, his voice echoing with eternal truth, "is your calling, not to impress, not to perform, but to love, to surrender, to shine." In the distance, a new path opened, a path leading back to my earthly life, but now marked with the footprints of grace. I knew the journey ahead would not always be easy. Pride would try to creep in again. Fear would whisper its lies. But now I had seen the truth. Now I carried within me the memory of a love too powerful to be forgotten. With one final smile, full of infinite patience and joy, Jesus released my hand. "Walk in humility, live in love. And never forget, my strength is perfected in your weakness. My glory shines brightest through surrendered hearts." The light around me grew brighter, enveloping me completely, lifting me up with its overwhelming beauty. And just before consciousness returned to my earthly body, I heard his final whisper, soft and strong, echoing into the depths of my soul. "I am with you always." When I awoke in the hospital bed, the physical world felt strange, almost too small to contain the enormity of what I had experienced. Machines beeped softly. Nurses spoke in hushed tones. Life around me moved on, unaware of the eternal encounter that had just rewritten the story of my soul. But I knew. I knew that every breath from that moment forward was a sacred gift. Every day was a new invitation to walk the path of humility, to live out the miracle of transformation, and to reflect the light of Christ into a world desperately searching for hope. And so I rose, not in my own strength, but carried by grace, to begin the journey anew. A journey of surrender, a journey of freedom, a journey of love. And it is a journey open to you too. Thank you for being part of this incredible journey with us. If this message touched your heart, please like this video and subscribe to our channel. We are building a beautiful community where grace, healing, and transformation shine every day. And don't stop here. A new, glorious revelation awaits you. Just click on the next video that is appearing on your screen now. It will bless your life in ways you cannot imagine. We are waiting for you with open hearts. Amen.